Farage, is this what 5 million quid in security buys, these guys here?
Vote reform, get Starmer out if you want real change.
Many people feel that life is not fair. We want to bring some fairness back.
So we're looking for the potential to have our 8th successive year of gains. That's never happened before.
We're going to go all out to win that majority, and we'll see what the public make of it tomorrow.
Welsh politics has changed, and I believe it's changed forever.
You keep saying we, but isn't it that people are really upset with Keir Starmer?
Keir is the leader of the Labour Party, so of course he gets the most stick of everybody.
Do you remember any elections as momentous as these?
They're momentous because they're different.
It used to be so simple. 2 parties, the Conservatives and Labour. No longer. On the eve of momentous elections in England, Scotland and Wales, the old certainties are being swept away. Here's how it used to look nearly 40 years ago.
The Conservatives strong in the south, Labour dominant in the north. A blue and red divide.
Blue and red. And then came yellow.
That shows the substantial growth of the Liberal Democrats. It shows that this idea that Britain's in 2-party politics is nonsense.
Paddy Ashdown, the Liberal Democrat leader, shook up English politics, first as a party of protest, eventually a party in power in coalition with the Conservatives. And then this.
The SNP have been bestowed trust by the people in a way that no party ever has before in a Scottish election.
Devolution was Tony Blair's clever idea to, as his cabinet colleague put it, kill nationalism stone dead. But instead, it handed the nationalists the keys to the castle. And so began the SNP's nearly 2 decades of power in Scotland, with Plaid Cymru poised to end more than a quarter of a century of Labour rule in Wales.
Go, Nigel, go!
People who are going out and voting UKIP are not just protesting. They're not just sticking 2 fingers up, although there's very good reason to do so. They're voting for us because they see us offering positive policy solutions to the mess this country's in.
The nationalists are remaking England too. First UKIP, then the Brexit Party, now Reform UK. The name's changed. The man sticking 2 fingers up to the Labour-Conservative duopoly remains the same.
It's been utter 2-party dominance all the way through to where we are now. A complete sea change.
Nigel Farage on the right, Zach Polansky on the left. A new era of rainbow politics is taking shape. But there's unlikely to be a pot of gold at the end of this acrimonious rainbow. With the latest on a frantic final day of campaigning, here's our political editor, Beth Rigby.
Out on the campaign trail for the final day ahead of a set of elections that could be truly seismic as our traditional 2-party system splits apart.
Thank you.
Tory leader Kemi Badenoch getting out in London boroughs that were once true blue. But she's struggling to drive a Conservative recovery, her party heading for big losses across the country.
What we're seeing is the era of 2-party politics moving into multi-party politics. There are no safe seats for any party. We all have to work hard for every vote. What will be a disaster is seeing more Labour, more Lib Dems, more Green, more Reform, because none of these people are serious. The only party that is serious and that has a plan, not just for local councils, but for the country, is the Conservatives.
But voters are serious in their disdain for the 2 traditional parties, and this man is about to do serious damage.
Vote reform, get Starmer out if you want real change in national government and in the approach to local government. We are the change option, and we're on that ballot paper in 99.9% of wards across the United Kingdom. And you know what? We're the only true national party. We're campaigning in all parts of the UK. And I think you're going to be surprised how much enthusiasm there is for our message.
Enthusiasm too for the Green Party. Zach Polansky looking to hurt Labour in inner London, but facing questions too about how ready he is for the big stage.
Do you think you're ready to be Prime Minister?
I'm not ready right now. No, I've been leader for 8 months and there's lots of skills and lots of knowledge to get. And I think that's fine. I think I'm a human being. I'm not perfect.
But give it 2 years, you will be.
Well, we'll see in 2 years' time, won't we? But I'll certainly be putting in the work.
Work in the wealthy commuter belt. Ed Davey trained on the Tories as the Lib Dems eye hundreds more gains.
we really are pushing the Tories back. I think people are turning to us. And interestingly, these fights are increasingly between the Liberal Democrats and Reform, because people remember how dreadful the Conservatives were, and they're either coming to back Liberal Democrats or some going to Reform.
And it's not just England where Labour and the Conservatives are taking a hammering. In Wales, Plaid Cymru looked to wrest control of the Senedd from Labour. For the first time in nearly 3 decades of devolution, this would be a massive moment.
Smiling.
In Scotland, Labour have lost all hope from winning Holyrood back from the SNP. This time around, the party's hoping not to be pushed into third by Reform.
Out leading from the front, I think you've got...
Labour in turmoil, embracing for punishment at the polls. The deputy leader urging the party to stick with Starmer.
We have made some mistakes. We've needed to be set out a clearer sense of direction and a clearer purpose. I think we've started to see that coming through, and I'm pleased about that. But, you know, these elections are coming round faster than that.
What I'm getting to is that you keep saying we, but isn't it that people are really upset with Keir Starmer?
Look, Keir is the leader of the Labour Party, so of course he gets the most stick of everybody. There's no question of that.
Well, he makes the decisions.
And he doesn't make all the decisions, but obviously he takes full responsibility for the decisions of the Labour Party and of the government. And he's been the first to admit where he has made mistakes, whether it was the appointment of Peter Mandelson, whether it was around the winter fuel payments, you know, that's still an issue sometimes on the doorstep with pensioners as well.
But do you think he is the right leader to lead this change agenda?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
These elections will perhaps be looked back on as the moment where Britain broke with its two-party system that's dominated our politics for the past century. We'll potentially have national parliaments in Wales and Scotland led by national parties as Reform rips up Labour and Tory dominance in English councils, whilst the Greens march on Labour London. And as for the governing party, Labour could be heading for its worst ever local election performance as voters give their first real ballot box verdict on Starmer's government. It's going to be ugly for Labour. How bloody it gets for Starmer depends on how his cabinet and his party react.
The PM hitting the phones to voters ahead of the polls. When the results land, his next job will be to persuade his MPs to stay with him. But that's his party's call, not his. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Bury.
John, we're an iconic political address with a particular significance on the eve of these elections.
Millbank Tower, headquarters to the Labour Party in the Blair years, where 2 election victories, 97 and 2001, were masterminded. Then in the Tory years, when Cameron was leader, the Conservatives were in here, and last year, Reform UK moved in here.
So a real sign of the times. And, you know, we're on the eve of these momentous elections. You have been covering local politics, I know you don't mind me saying,
national
since the
politics.
80s. Sorry. Local and national.
I suppose
since
so,
the
yeah.
80s.
Yes.
Do you remember any elections as momentous as these?
They're momentous because they're different. For the first time, it's 5-party politics. It always used to be Labour versus Conservative, basically. And Blair always used to say, the only thing I care about is if the main opposition party is picking up votes. He didn't care about the small parties.
Didn't
that's
have to
different.
worry.
That's different now.
And obviously, in the wake of the results, everybody's going to be spinning furiously. You remember how they spin these results.
Most famous example, 1990, the Conservatives got absolutely slaughtered in a local election. Terrible night for them, except they won Westminster here and Wandsworth south of the river. And Kenneth Baker, the Tory chairman, brilliantly spun the fact it had been a great night for the Tories. It hadn't, of course.
And you know, local elections in England, national in Wales and Scotland, but there will be national ramifications across the country, won't there? And plots, leadership, and that's all very familiar from the past, isn't it?
Well, the plotting's already started, so we're led to believe. And of course, it was back in 2006 that Tom Watson led a plot against Tony Blair to get him to set a date for his departure, which he eventually did. They met in a curry restaurant in Wolverhampton. It was known as Baltygate, the Curry House plot, when they forced Tony Blair to announce he was going. He did it at a school up in North London where he said, next week's TUC conference will be my last. much to the relief of both of us, he said, and the Labour conference would be his last, and of course he went in 2007.
And you have lots of plotting going on now. Let's go and check out what's happening. What's the latest?
Better had.
Thangham Debonair and Gillian Keegan are on the sofa tonight. Gillian, let me start with you, because I want to come to Thangham about a personal question in a second, but two-party politics gone for good. What are the implications?
The implications are Labour are going to have a disastrous night, we're going to have a not very good night, Lib Dems are going to remain flat, and Reform and Greens are going to have a fabulous evening, probably, or
but the
day.
implications for politics, you know, nationally...
Well, all the experience walks out the door. We get, God knows what we got. I mean, you know, 30 of the Greens have been under investigation already, 30 of Reform, I think, have half suspended. I think they've 9 suspended in Wales. So the quality of the candidates, I think, will go down. People, I think, are not voting on local issues. They're voting, it's kind of like a midterms. It's kind of like a referendum on Labour, a referendum still on the Conservative government that we had before that. And, you know, all of the things that they're promising on this election campaign literature, they actually can't deliver any of it, whether it's Palestine, immigration, none of it. So the things that they do deliver and can deliver, which are really important, you'll notice it when it's not done well.
OK, I'll come back to that thought in a second, but I want to put this personal question to Thangham, because, I mean, you got defeated by the Greens.
Are you going to remind me of that every
I'm sorry!
It's like your script.
It's true. But you were the canary in the coal mine, weren't you?
No, there were canaries before me, and there really were. I mean, there's been warnings about the Greens for some years.
Ignored by the main party?
Well, I
complacent.
think we're going to have to reassess how we manage in this era of multi-party politics.
It's a bit late.
Because
it's a bit late, isn't it? You're both facing oblivion.
Well, me and Gillian have already done that.
We faced
oblivion
very happily, actually, as it turns out. But, I mean, there is life after politics, but they will until they get elected. And that's what then changes. When you have to defend a record, you become just like us.
And they,
they
will
become the establishment.
Yes.
These people who are going to win council seats, or may win council seats tomorrow, I mean, obviously, I still want everyone to vote Labour and to vote for a better country, but
ain't going to happen.
Whatever happens, whoever wins, if it's from the two parties, the Green Party and the Reform Party, who've basically run election campaigns on give Starmer a kicking, will suddenly discover they've got to fill the potholes, collect the bins, deal with the fact that most of their budget they can't cut because it's statutorily required to spend on social care.
And,
they will not have what they think they've got.
And I opened the show by saying there isn't a pot of gold at the end of this rainbow. I realise I'm wearing rainbow socks, by the way, which was, you know, sort of, I don't know, not intentional, but anyway, very appropriate. You're looking at my green nail varnish now.
I am.
Don't read anything into that.
Don't
read anything into that.
You're too sensible, surely.
However, now covering up my nails for reasons of compliance. But, you know, when you look at what's going on in councils across the country where Reform have got in, for example, there is no money. So when they're trying to make ends meet, you know, with very little cash, it's hard, isn't it?
But also what they're going to find is, as many Reform councils have found since last year, that you promise that you'll come in and you'll slash council spending and you'll cut this and you'll cut that, and then they open up the books and they realise that already happens. Most councils are now, you know, a lot of the councils Reform run, lots of services have already been contracted out. They've already had their budgets cut after 14 years of Tory governments. I would say that.
I was a councillor. I went through it. I'd spent 30 years in the business world, and I brought everything I knew to that council. I outsourced things. I made things much more efficient.
And,
you know, there isn't. And I doubt they would even know where to look.
OK, and I'm going to come back to Reform later in the programme, but I want to just stick on Zach Polanski for a minute. I mean, I know I always give you a hard time about the Greens, so I will in a second.
No,
but let's come to Gillian first on Zach, because he's been answering questions today about his CV, his suitability for leadership. Did he answer those critics, you know, openly and fairly?
I mean, he's suffering from scrutiny, and it's not going to go away. It's only going to get higher and higher. Based on what's happened so far, he's not really passing it. And actually, the public are not sure about this guy. I mean, you know, he's obviously done some very weird things in his CV, which is probably why he has to create some more sensible, acceptable things, which he's put on his CV. But
maybe he's just an ordinary bloke. And by the way, I should say...
Nobody is that No, I know a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. I have never seen anyone with quite that combination. The one thing he wants,
what you mean?
all
no
the way
one who
through,
both speaks for the Red Cross, but also makes people's boobs grow bigger.
Well,
but
100%.
doesn't speak for the Red Cross, as the Red Cross have
and doesn't
confirmed
make people's
today.
boobs grow bigger.
And actually, that has not been.
He does like the limelight. I think that's the one thing that's throughout all of his sort of semi-bits of career that none of them really have taken off. He does like the limelight, and boy, oh boy, is he getting it now.
Well,
however,
except, by the way, we've been asking him for months, really, to come on the sofa here, and he hasn't.
He's obviously frightened of you.
He's spoken to colleagues at Sky News, so I can't complain too much. But were you buying any of the explanations today from Zach?
I thought what was most revealing was how he answered the question about was he ready to be Prime Minister, and he basically said no. And
But
I find
maybe
that
will,
extraordinary.
Young people might think, well, fair enough, he's answered the questions. He's not an identikit politician.
They may think that. And they will find, well, everybody finds in the end that when you actually get into government, any party that's in government, whether it's local government, mayoral government or national government, has to make difficult decisions. And I think that's one of the things that we've had a Labour government for the last year and a half. It's passed 52 bills. We've done things like bringing Great British Energy and all sorts of reforms to rent. And that's been tricky. It's not been easy because at the same time, you've got to make the budget work. Now, that's what Zach Polanski's going to have to learn. He says he's willing to learn it. I really don't love the fact that someone is saying they want to be Prime Minister, but they're admitting they don't know how to do it, which he doesn't, and shows no signs of willing to take responsibility.
OK, let's talk about Scotland and Wales, because, you know, in Scotland, the SNP looked like, well, Labour had high hopes of kicking them out. That's not going to happen. Plaid ending over a quarter of a century of Labour rule in Wales. These are parties that want to break up the UK now that are going to be ruling the roost. What are the implications of that for the whole of Britain?
Well, both of them, I think, have tried to say that this is not about a referendum, or this is not... I mean, SNP maybe have come out a few days ago and said, oh, we may ask for another referendum. But Plaid have been very clear to say this isn't about independence, this is about getting a better run Wales, etc. But, of course, if they do get in power, then they will use it. It's their lifelong mission to break up the UK. And I think that's dreadful. I mean, the UK is so much stronger together. We're all, I think, unionists. I'm a Conservative unionist. And, you know, we're just much better together. And all of these over-promising under-delivery, it's not just a UK problem, it's actually a bit of a global problem.
I mean, I think with Plaid, they have made so many extraordinary promises that they're going to find that if you promise that on day one you will create free childcare and you haven't thought about where's the workforce going to come from, how are you going to pay for it, day one will pass very quickly.
With the nanosecond?
Well, Plaid, if they win, and it's still a big if they actually get a majority that they can use to try and fulfil their manifesto commitments, they're going to get to day two and think, oh dear, where's the free childcare?
Well, but if they don't get a majority, which is possibly more likely, and then Labour's in a minority administration with them, you're tarred with the same brush then,
we are all trying to work out what's going to happen on Friday and Saturday.
Coalitions as well.
Coalitions, as you know, Gillian.
We don't do many
well
of
in this
them.
country. We don't do them well yet.
Somebody gets tarred with the brush. Yes. That is definitely true.
And it was the Lib Dems in 15.
It was. And what you will find is, if it fails next time, which it will, because over-promise and under-delivery is not a plan.
It's bad politics.
It's very bad politics, and it doesn't last long because the scrutiny is so high from programmes like this. But what happens after that? That's the bit that I'm really, really concerned about.
Final thought from you. Keir Starmer, the leadership rivals circling, but have they really got the guts or the appetite or even the sort of practical wherewithal? They've got to get the 81 signatures and all that.
There's also a bigger question, which is the country. The country needs running. A government is supposed to be running a country. And I really believe that my colleagues want to carry on running the country, trying to take us to a better future. That's what Keir got elected to do in 2024. I think the country will not look kindly on a party that wants to spend months arguing about who's the leader and who's up and who's down. We need to get on with running the country.
More to come in a minute.
Mr Farage, why won't you declare the donation? Sorry. You're a public figure. You need the donation because you're in politics.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking...
Thank you so much.
...trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
Well, as we've been hearing, the last day of campaigning saw political leaders fan out across the country in a last-minute attempt to sway voters. But we caught up with Nigel Farage a little earlier today as he appeared at a photo opportunity in Westminster.
I'm just going to try and grab a word with Nigel Farage. Nigel, will you speak to us afterwards? You have a little chat. He's just doing a press conference here, but doesn't seem to want to stop and speak. We'll try and get him after. It's the final day of campaigning before the elections in England, Scotland and Wales. Reform leader Nigel Farage is doing a photo op right here in Westminster. I'm going to try and grab a word with him.
We launched this campaign 3 weeks ago saying vote reform, get Starmer out. I hope and believe you'll emerge.
Mr Farage, is this what £5 million in security buys, these guys here?
You'd be surprised.
Oh, really? Is it expensive?
What do you think?
How long's the £5 million going to last, Mr Farage?
Hopefully till I'm dead.
On this $5 million donation before the last election, will you refer yourself over this? Newly elected MPs must register all relevant financial interests 12 months prior to the election. Why haven't you done this?
Because it's not political. That's why. Personal, political. By the way, I have to say, I do rather object to illegally obtained information being put out, but that's the world we live in. I've had my computers hacked and much else in the last few weeks, but it's out there. I haven't denied it.
This is a hack, is it?
On my computer via Cameo, that was a hack, but that was no doubt, and there is a court case to come on that. Look, here we are. You've known me a long time. I've been physically under attack since 2013. I can't catch the underground, and I'll never be able to as long as I live. And that money was given to me with the knowledge that the state in this country have never, ever wanted to help me. And you know what? Private security is not.
And why not refer yourself if you're clean on this?
Because why should I? I mean, honestly, we've looked at this with lawyers and everything. There is no case to answer.
Mr Farage, why won't you declare the donation? You're a public figure. You need the donation because you're in politics. Mr Farage, Christopher Harborne's given you the party £9 million last year, £3 million this year, £5 million to you personally. He's not even based in the UK. He's interfering with democracy, isn't he?
Well, the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, has told our deputy political editor, Sam Coates, that her party was willing to work with anyone who would deliver Conservative policies in areas where no party has a majority. The Lib Dems said this showed that the Tories were preparing to help put Nigel Farage into Downing Street at the next election. Here's what she told Sam.
I feel like at local level, you've been very clear that this is up to local leaders to make the best decision to work out who, if there's a minority arrangement, to make the council or the parliament leader. So in theory, a vote on Thursday could mean Tories propping up a reform-led administration somewhere. Now, that's a big difference because the Greens, the Lib Dems, Labour, all nationalist parties, they all say they wouldn't do that, but the Tories would. Do you accept that that's a big difference in terms of attitude to reform?
So we have a test case. Last year, we had lots of elections where reform won many councils. How many of them are being run with Conservatives? 0. So we have proof. We are willing to work with people who will help deliver Conservative policies.
Well, Thangam and Gillian are back on the sofa. Gillian, Nigel Farage there shrugging off the scrutiny.
£5 million. It blows my mind that somebody...
Well, that's just a personal gift.
A personal gift. I mean, it makes the glasses and suits look
Thank you for saying
irrelevant,
that, Gillian.
doesn't it?
Thank you for saying
I mean, it does, doesn't it? And it's... it blows my mind, actually, because that is a serious amount of money, right?
In his defence, he has been under attack. You know, he has had a milkshake thrown over him and so on. He says he needs that for security.
2 MPs have been murdered and, you know, there have been many, many serious attacks. And that's what parliamentary security is there to take account of that. Actually, when you're thrown out of politics, it actually all goes...
They rip them out.
It
do they do that to you?
Yeah.
They come round, they rip out your security.
Suddenly no one knows you, right?
Nobody knows you.
But he says it's purely personal. There's no sort of political...
outrageous. You couldn't spend it on security. No. I mean, as you say, there's 3 guys there. for however long. Plus he gets parliamentary security. 5 million quid is a huge amount of money. I suppose what it shows is whatever happens to him, and I've got a feeling he would hate the top job because suddenly the scrutiny would be terrible and he would have to deliver.
Well, he could just keep saying no to interviews, though.
Well, the country does get to vote, so he would be unpopular very, very quickly. He'd be more unpopular than Keir Starmer quicker, would be my prediction.
I mean, both Labour and the Tories have had huge donations in the past. Christopher Harbin's donation...
Not personal donations, though.
No, OK,
but
nobody gave you 5 mil. Nobody gave me 5 mil. I don't think anyone gave
OK, but talk about the 9 million and the 3 million, you know, to the party.
Yes.
You know, it is bigger than any donation to any other party before. How concerning is it that Christopher Harborne does not live in the UK?
And he's a crypto guy. And they are the only party saying we'll take donations in crypto, we'll
this is
support
why
crypto.
it matters. This is why we have rules. Because when person A gives politician B a large amount of money, let's say randomly, £5 million, and then politician B makes a decision for their party's policies, which appears to benefit, just by sheer coincidence, person A, you need to, as the public, as journalists, as politicians, you need to be able to join the dots yourself and
That's
ask
the whole
questions.
point of the system.
He was evading questions in that clip. And what I saw was actually, if you're spending money, you're spending it on people blocking journalists from asking him questions.
Well, he did a pool interview where he answered 8 questions.
It was outrageous.
It was
Did he actually answer the questions now?
He didn't answer the questions, and most of it was
He didn't
about
answer
poor
my
me.
questions.
Poor Nigel. Poor Nigel.
He was
hacked. Really outrageous.
So actually, he should have declared it.
Yes.
And he's moaning because he was hacked and the information's gone out into the public domain when he didn't declare it. I don't think that he's got the job, really. He needs to understand that you are open to public scrutiny, and actually it almost borders on the unfair. I got a load of stick for my own watch, which I bought myself.
But he's done imposter for so many years.
That's true.
He's done that. I'm the outsider. I'm here for the little guy. I'll go down the pub with anybody. In actual fact, it's mostly been a complete act. It's a sham, and now he's actually in elected politics, and he's actually got to think about, how am I going to run this? And he doesn't realise rules apply to him.
He's the man of the moment. He's going to be winning on Friday. Kemi Badenoch's done plenty of interviews, and it's not doing her any good, is it?
Winning is a very short-term experience in British politics. Not only our politics, actually. I think it's happening in many, many countries around the world. The scrutiny, the fact there's over-promising and under-delivery, the fact that our economies are all stagnating for many reasons, and we're really struggling to get over a lot of the things that happened in the pandemic, etc. So it is going to be a short-term, sweet taste, and it won't last long.
Do you agree with that? It's a high watermark for Reform and the Greens?
Well, we're going to find out, aren't we? But I think what you do if you play the outsider, the pugnacious outsider who's not from mainstream politics, but you're trying to get into mainstream politics, you end up in a contradiction there, because you're trying to say people, I'm not like the others, but actually when you get into power, you discover that just like the others, you're going to have to make some really hard decisions, and life's going to be you're going to be under scrutiny the whole time for good reason. Yes. You should be under scrutiny.
Unless he does a Trump, right? So Trump just says all these crazy things that, you know, don't agree with what he said yesterday. He may try that here. I don't think the Brits will fall for that or stand for it.
Especially not now we've had the chance to watch Trump doing it and see what effect it actually has on our lives. Because at the moment we're not in the war, and I think most British people have said they're really pleased about that, but they're certainly feeling the pinch as a result of the war.
If Nigel Farage does use victory, we assume, on Friday as the launch pad for getting into number 10, what effect will that have on the country, do you think?
If he gets in?
Yeah. I'm looking ahead to the next general election.
Well, I think...
And possibly propped up by your party.
Well, I don't think we would do that, because then we would be tarred with their brush. And
I mean, honestly, not ruled it out categorically on this programme.
And you have to.
Last week.
You have to, because, I mean, they're going to be useless, right? Most of the candidates are not tried and tested on anything. Even the ones who've been businessmen, you know, they've not always been, let's say, scrupulous in many cases. So, you know, they're really not going to live up to the expectations. And the public's not really looking at them in any great detail. What they're basically saying is the Conservatives, 14 years, and Labour, you know, we're not happy with them. So it is a bit of an anti-vote, but once you become Prime Minister, there is a great deal of expectation on you.
And I think both the Greens and Reform are going to find out really, really quickly that once you get power, you've got to make difficult decisions and you get the scrutiny. It's no use sulking about it. It's no use whining, which is what I got from Zach Lansky.
This is the problem.
And
how many times has that been promised?
I know.
We're
often.
We're going to talk about some of the difficult decisions that are coming down the track for Keir Starmer and other international leaders when we talk about Iran in just a second.
Yes.
So stay tuned for that. And a reminder, we'll have full coverage of the elections tomorrow here on Sky News. It all kicks off at midnight with Sam Coates and Jonathan Samuels, as you can see there. Sophie Ridge will pick up the baton in the morning, and I'll be back on Friday night for a special bumper edition of this show from 7 p.m.
Churchill reportedly said, "I would not have dared to try it, but if I had, I would not have dared to stop."
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be allowed to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting. The whole neighborhood is rallied around her. It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming. It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking...
Thank you so much.
...trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story? I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be allowed to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
Now, could we be moving closer to a resolution of the war in the Middle East? The American president is suggesting a deal with Iran is imminent, but is threatening US retribution if it doesn't happen. Mr. Trump has been speaking in the last hour. Let's have a look.
We're in I call it a skirmish, because that's what it is. It's a skirmish. And we're doing unbelievably well, as we did in Venezuela, where it was rapid, over in one day. And we're doing pretty much equally as well, I would say, larger. But we're doing very well in Iran. It's going very smoothly, and we'll see what happens. They want to make a deal. They want to negotiate.
Going very smoothly, he says. Well, let's bring in our US correspondent, David Blevins. David.
Yeah, well, I hope you've installed seatbelts on that new sofa, Cathy, because we're on quite a wild ride here. It all began yesterday when Pete Hegseth, he's the man who calls himself Secretary of War, said the recent attacks in the Strait of Hormuz were not breaches of the ceasefire, so the Pentagon had shifted its focus to Project Freedom, securing safe transit through the strait. That was echoed by the man who oversees US foreign policy, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, telling us that Operation Epic Fury, the war was over, and Project Freedom, securing safe passage through the strait, had begun. 2 cabinet secretaries talking up the president's Project Freedom just moments before he announced he was winding it down because they were close to a deal. But just how close to a deal? Well, in his latest post on Truth Social, Donald Trump says if Iran keeps its word, the Strait of Hormuz will be open to all. And if it doesn't, the bombing will resume with even greater intensity. Sounds like a president hedging his bets to me. Of course, he's about to head to China for his postponed summit with President Xi. There's been some speculation here in Washington. He could detour, go via Islamabad to sign a deal. But the president has told the New York Post he won't be doing that, because they're not close enough to a deal. All rather head-spinning, isn't it?
It certainly is, David. I'm ordering in those seatbelts right now. Well, a little earlier, I spoke to John Bolton, former National Security Advisor to Donald Trump, who fell out with the president over foreign policy. Ambassador, are you assuming that the bombing between Iran and the US will start again fairly soon, or do you think this deal has a chance?
Well, I think we're in a state of utter confusion now. At least Trump is in a state of utter confusion. The operation to open the Strait of Hormuz was an entirely sensible thing for him to do. I think it's one way to take the gun away from the temple of the international economy that the Iranians have appointed. But to stop now in search of a one-page deal is a big mistake. Any one-page deal is not a piece of paper worth what it's has printed on it, because these issues are very complex. What Trump wants is out of this for domestic political purposes. He's grasping at straws, and I think throwing away a lot of the advantages that he's achieved in the attacks, notwithstanding he's done plenty of things wrong. This is a big mistake if it's true.
So what do you think he should be doing? Finishing the job?
Right. Look, I've thought for over 20 years that the only way you're going to have peace and stability in the Middle East and eliminate the nuclear terrorist threats from the regime in Tehran is to get a new regime there. Now, I don't know what Trump's objectives are. I don't know what they were at the beginning of the attacks or today, for that matter. But I think we've definitely shaken the regime. And if we could keep the blockade on Iranian shipments of oil in place, but open up commerce from the Gulf Arab states to allow their oil and gas to come onto international markets, I think the Iranians would be in a very, very difficult position.
I'll come back to the Strait of Hormuz in just a second, but regime change has always been fanciful, hasn't it, without a far more extensive campaign involving, inevitably, American boots on the ground, and Trump simply hasn't got the appetite for that, has he?
No, I don't think there's any question here of American boots on the ground except for very limited missions. But I think given the overwhelming unpopularity of the regime all across the country, the young people, 2/3 of the population are under 30. They can't stand it. The women can't stand it. The ethnic groups can't stand it. The economies was a disaster before the war even started. And I think the damage that's been done in just the 6 weeks of the attacks has begun to cause the regime to come apart at the top, eliminating hundreds of their leaders, doing incredible damage to the institutions of Iranian state power. To stop now, I think, is a big mistake. But Trump himself has made plenty of other mistakes, notably not doing enough to help the opposition. We could still do that, though, and I think regime change is possible without significant ground forces being committed by us.
You say the regime has been fundamentally weakened, but in some ways you could argue the opposite. In fact, the IRGC, for example, has entrenched its hold. You know, the people are more fearful now than they were, so the idea of a popular uprising is for the birds.
Well, I think the IRGC has been in power really for the last half dozen to 10 years or more. And the regime clearly is even before the war started, is capable of brutalizing the population. There's no doubt about that. They massacred over 40,000 people in January for protesting the economic conditions. So a lot needs to be done to aid the opposition. Trump should have started that before the war began. But the level of unpopularity cannot be underestimated. I think there are a lot of figures, even in the regime, seeing that ship may be going down, who could determine they don't want to go down with it.
What are the consequences, in your view, if Trump does sue for peace now?
Well, I think the Iranians will be able to turn the Strait of Hormuz on and off like a light switch if that happens. That threat was always palpable. Everybody who can read a map could see that somebody in the Gulf, whether it was Iran or somebody else, could try and put a chokehold on oil exports. Now Iran has done it, and if there's any chance to restore deterrence against Iran, it's evicting them from the position they have by military force. If they simply sign a diplomatic agreement and back away, they have leave to come in 6 months from now and do it again. And with some measure that Trump wouldn't have the spine next time to do what he's just finished doing for the 6 weeks of the attacks.
Trump's going to China in a week. We had the Iranian foreign minister meeting his Chinese counterpart ahead of that. China's sort of pitching itself as a mediator. What do you hope that Trump is able to get out of that visit?
Well, I think Trump certainly wants to make a trade deal with China. I don't see that that's been prepared. I don't see it's in the works. Maybe can sign another one-page deal. Those are easy to agree to and easy to ignore. The fact is, China has a lot at stake in keeping the regime in power in Tehran, as does Russia. As part of the Beijing-Moscow axis, they've been forming over the past several years, the partnership without limits, as Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin call it. Iran has been their principal outrider in the Middle East, and keeping the regime in power is very much in their interest. Certainly, China, as a huge importer of oil from the Gulf, would like to see the oil exports resume. But it was purchasing most of its oil before the attacks from the Saudis and the Emiratis, only a smaller amount from Iran. So it has an interest in that, but so does the rest of the world.
Do you think it's a good idea for Trump to go and meet, to do this visit to China, or not?
Well, I don't think it's the right time to do it, but as you may remember, he canceled one trip at the end of March, early April, to postpone it to mid-May. He wants to go back to Beijing. There's no doubt about it in my mind. He once told Theresa May in 2018, when he was visiting her at Chequers, that his 2017 visit to China showed the Chinese had given him the biggest welcome they had given any foreign leader in all of Chinese history. And Mrs. May didn't know quite how to respond to that, nor did the rest of us at the table. But he's hoping to break his own record from 2017. He wants to go to Beijing. I think he will go, whether it's advisable or not.
I mean, can he hope for Chinese help on this crucial matter of reopening the Strait of Hormuz, which it's killing economies around the world?
Well, if the Chinese could have their way, sure, they'd love to see the Strait of Hormuz open, because if the regime in Tehran could derive revenues from the unsanctioned sale of oil, China could buy more oil from Iran. The revenues flowing into the government's coffers in Tehran would allow it to start paying its troops and its employees again. They might be able to get the Iranian economy to get that started again, because it's in truly dismal shape. I think opening the Strait of Hormuz to everybody at this time clearly benefits Iran more than anybody else.
Is there any sense that Trump can offer some concessions, for example, on Taiwan, billions of dollars of arms sales to Taiwan? China clearly wants to push him on that. Any sense of a kind of quid pro quo there?
Well, I don't think we see anything publicly. I know the people on Taiwan are very worried that they're part of the menu, and they're very nervous about it. I think that would be a huge mistake for Trump, but his search to be able to say he made a deal, which is his life's greatest mission, doesn't matter what the deal says, he just likes to say he made another deal. It's possible that he would make concessions on Taiwan. I think it would be a big mistake, but I think realistically he would do it in a heartbeat if he thought it would get him a deal.
Just standing back for a moment, you're a long-standing critic of Trump. Some around the world are saying this is the biggest energy crisis in history. Do you think, because of what Donald Trump has done in Iran, the way he's handled this conflict, the world is now in a more precarious, more dangerous place than at any point in living memory, really?
No, I mean, I am critical of the way he's handled it in many respects. We don't have time to go through them all, but it certainly wasn't, I think, done in the way most advantageous to U.S. interests. But I don't think this is an oil shock comparable, for example, to the OPEC embargoes and price increases of the early 1970s. I think that was a real energy shock. I think there are ways to make this up, and I think countries and businesses are already taking mitigating steps. I think in Europe, perhaps the effect is felt more negatively than in the United States, where the price of gasoline is $4.50 a pump on a national average. As of a few weeks ago in Germany, it was roughly $8 or $9 a gallon. So Europe's feeling the pinch more than the United States, which, by the way, is one reason why it was a mistake for Europeans to say this is not our war. It certainly is.
Although they've seen the chaos that has ensued and thought that their electorates are really quite happy to be out of it. But your message generally, Trump should hold his nerve on this.
Yeah, Winston Churchill was once reported to have said in connection with the Suez Crisis of 1956, when Britain and France tried to take over the Suez Canal unsuccessfully, Churchill reportedly said, "I would not have dared to try it, but if I had, I would not have dared to stop."
Let's start with that Churchill quote, "I wouldn't have dared to stop." I mean, is that the situation? You know, is that right to say that Trump started this war in Iran? He's now got to take it to its logical conclusion.
And I think what that interview also showed, I mean, excellent Churchill quote at the end, but what was interesting earlier on in the interview was his very pithy descriptions of the way Trump's mind works, his obsession with making what he calls a deal. And I think John Bolton said something like, one-page deal, easy to make, easy to ignore, but it doesn't deal with the complexities of the world as it actually is. Trump wanting to be able to say on Truth Social, "I've brought peace, I brought war, I made a deal," is not how you run a world that's stable. And he also said something about the oil crisis comparing it to the OPEC oil crisis of the 70s. For certain countries in the world, this is very, very bad indeed. So we get 20% or so of our oil and so forth through the Strait of Hormuz. Some parts of the world get more like 80%. India, for instance, where the cost of food and preparing food has shot up because they depend on LNG, liquefied natural gas, coming through the Strait, and it's not.
Gillian, Trump wants a deal. I mean, is there a bit of you that thinks, oh, maybe that will resolve this situation in the Strait of Hormuz, just get a deal, get this done? Or do you agree with John Bolton that he started this, he has to finish it, wherever that takes him?
Well, if you're desperate for a deal, you get a bad deal.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for him, not only is he the co-author of Art of a Deal, I'm sure the book sales are plummeting as we speak, but is also...
He didn't write all of that, but...
I mean, he certainly doesn't follow any of it. But, if he gets a bad deal, unfortunately for him, there is also one you compare it to, which is the JCPOA or JPCOA, the one that was already there, the 15-page deal, the Obama deal. So you'll be very easily be able to compare. And, the reality is they have military might, but it's called geopolitics for a reason. They have the geography, and they've always had the geography. And the Straits of Hormuz, everybody has known that is a risk, and he's just blundered into it, and now he needs to try and get an off-ramp for his ego. That is where we are, and hopefully that happens in a way that's not too catastrophic. But I fear he's handed a lot of the cards over
but he's
to
also,
the Iranians.
He squandered one of the things that, in fact, a couple of things that he said quite early on. When the Iranians were uprising against the regime, and that's one of the other things John Bolton was talking about, is like getting rid of the regime. That is a laudable aim. But he obviously didn't have a plan. During the uprising, he said, help is coming. Hang on, help is coming. That is patently not there. It's just not there. So the Iranians haven't got the means to be able to rise up against their leaders, however hated they may be. And he also hasn't got rid of the nuclear threat. So if this deal covers it...
that is, the regime is actually, cracking. This can be done. You don't even need ground troops. Is he delusional?
Well, I don't know. He's the military expert, the national security expert, not me. But I think what we haven't seen is any well-thought-through, visible plan of how we actually help the Iranian people to rise up against their own rulers. Because actually trying to replace a ruler from another country it's very unlikely to work. You have to have that with the consent and cooperation of people.
You've got to think it's possible because of what happened before this. And, they've got 70% inflation. in
Yeah.
Iran. I mean, it's costing them, you know, $500 million. This.
But they got shot when they tried to protest.
That is a regime that does not care what it does to its own people.
Exactly.
And that is also something that is really different, because Trump does care. The gas prices have gone up, inflation has gone up, food prices have gone up.
And it's coming home to haunt people here in the elections tomorrow.
It absolutely is, because the cost of living is the #1 issue for so many people, and everybody will be noticing that things are costing more.
And it's only the beginning of it. You know,
It was bad enough before. It was bad enough before this. Already we had a lot of impacts, actually probably left over from the pandemic. There was a lot of things that were still working through the system. This is now, and it's a high price everybody's paying. And if we've got nothing for it, apart from more instability...
And no regime change.
And no regime change. And
no
nuclear disarmament.
Come back to the elections in just a moment. Coming up on Friday, we'll likely see the various parties spinning that they've had a good night, but we've been through the numbers and worked out what a really good or really bad night looks like for them all. So stay with us.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
A lot of local and national seats are up for grabs.
Waiting for the people's vote on who will sit in them.
It's your chance to have a say
on who has a seat at the table.
Follow Sky News as we give you the best seats in the House.
From voting
to the results,
the analysis,
and what comes next.
Join us for Vote 26.
Get the full story fast on Sky News.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
There seems to be some sort of a shooting, what appears to be shots fired at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
It was a jam-packed interview. I'll tell you what he told me, and I'll explain why you can't hear the call.
100 days in and back with the grassroots of this MAGA movement.
It feels a little bit like he's a king, not a president.
He is a king.
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too.
These immigration rates?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
I'm observing what you're doing.
This post of Trump, it's a big shift. It's very positive.
Have you seen what Donald Trump's been up to? In the Rose Garden, in the East Wing.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now? Well, what you're looking at now is a graph of the best and worst case scenarios for each of the parties in tomorrow's elections, devised by Professors Colin Rawlings and Michael Thrasher. Now, I mean, it's one of those graphs that is designed by boffins that you spend about half an hour sort of puzzling over. I mean, the general gist of it, though, Thangham and Gillian are poring over this now. I mean, I'm looking at the kind of terrible result for Labour, Thangham, losing 2,000 council seats. Yeah, that would be pretty terrible. Where are you going to pin the tail on the electoral donkey?
It would be so bad if that was the case. I'm not going to pin any tail on any electoral donkey.
You're a party pooper.
Not. And you haven't got the Welsh and the Scottish elections on there.
I think these are English councils.
Is that the English councils?
I believe they're English councils.
I think whatever happens on Friday, we'll still have a Labour government doing really good things. We're going to have a King's Speech soon. It's going to set out more of what we're going to do. We did some great things in the last session.
Yeah, but going back to the graph...
Yeah, I like your graph. It's got some nice colours.
What it actually shows...
But it's pretty bad.
What it actually shows is that Labour and the Conservatives have the most seats to defend. That's actually what it shows.
I like this
statistician. And what it also shows is the Greens have got hardly any, but actually they're not doing all that well. Lib Dems are staying flat. I would have expected that to be further. And obviously they expect reform. They expect reform to be the big winner compared to the Greens.
It's not their target areas, though, is it, the Lib Dems? I mean, where these elections are being fought also comes into it. So it's quite a chunk of the country.
Though, aren't they?
Well, they are going to make some.
No, there's quite a lot in our area, which, you know, and Lib Dems are big in our area.
We don't meet them in the areas I go to.
No, possibly not in your areas, but...
Although I took my seat off a Lib Dem, you know. That was a million years ago. I mean, the places I've been going to Labour Tory, Labour Plaid, Labour Reform swings, and actually that feels like a terrible, terrible day to look at. It looks absolutely awful.
But so, I mean, you're right about coming back to Reform being the big winners, but isn't it just the expectation is that, you know, 2,000 would be plus 2,000 is a great night. You know, just under 1,000, well, just over 700 or something is an OK night. I mean, the bar is raised for them, isn't it?
Well, it is, but, you know, the Greens do run a few councils, very badly, the ones that we saw, actually. They have the worst record on recycling in the Green councils. That's an unknown fact. But maybe that's because they're not doing that now. They're doing Palestine instead. But, you know, but look, the Reform, they are expecting to be, in this particular area, to be the big winners. I don't know, you know, maybe the actual 9 that they're running badly, it hasn't filtered through yet.
Yeah, I mean, that could change. People will, in time, get used to what happens when you get a Reform Council, and they'll discover that, you know, those promises are not keepable. You can't change immigration policy on the council.
Thangham, I'm very, very glad that Gillian was here to help us out, because
yes,
the interpretation of all those stops, it was giving me a bit of a migraine, actually, to be honest. Thank you both very much. It's been great to have your analysis, as ever. And we leave you tonight with the Mother Bramley apple tree, the source of every Bramley tree and so every Bramley apple in existence. There is now a fundraising campaign to save public access to the tree, which grows in the garden of a cottage in Southwell, Nottinghamshire. That's it for now. See you tomorrow.